Hello, Recovery fam, and welcome back to the Unashamed Recovery podcast. I am one of your hosts, Josh.
And I'm your co-host, Drew.
Yep, and I'm back. I'm Palmer.
Today we are looking at counting it all joy in recovery.
That's right. Episode, I believe it's 44, season 4. You know, this episode comes in a timely manner because sometimes in recovery, things just suck. And we got to remember to count the joy. So, without further delay, roll that intro.
The Unashamed Recovery Podcast.
The Unashamed Recovery Podcast with Josh and Drew starts now.
Here at Unashamed Recovery, we believe that there is healing in the story of our scars, and that it is okay to not be okay.
It is our mission to break the shame and stigma of addiction in recovery by sharing real stories of real addiction from real people in real recovery and real sobriety.
And when we're not sharing those real stories, we like to bring you recovery-related topics straight from a biblical perspective. And that's just like today's episode. We're taking a look at a familiar or not so familiar recovery topic and looking at it from just another kind of angle. Today's episode comes from our good pal Palmer, who he made a comment on one of my posts that I made today. It said, celebrate the ups, but don't forget to also embrace the downs of your recovery journey. Even the bad days still have less lessons to offer us. And when Palmer made the suggestion of making that today's topic, I got to thinking about, Drew, the lessons from the hard days. That's what we take into the seasons of joy. The seasons of joy are built from those hard seasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can't get to a mountaintop without having to climb the mountain.
Mountaintop experiences built in the valley.
It has to start somewhere.
Palmer, this is your brainchild. What thoughts do you have on this subject of joy?
Well, I just want to remind everybody that joy is not happiness and happiness is not joy. There is a complete difference in both situations. Happiness is a feeling. Joy is a choice.
Something has to happen for you to be happy. Happy comes from the root word happenstance.
You just learned me something. I didn't know that.
So
I had no clue.
Happenstance means something has to happen in order for you to feel happiness. Joy, like Palmer said, comes from within. So happiness outside, like puppy or kittens on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's everybody's go-to.
Well, and I think we can take a lesson from this for us that are in recovery. Eventually, the pink cloud of recovery goes away.
Yep.
Recovery is all exciting at first. First couple days, it sucks. I ain't gonna lie. But, after you get out of the withdrawals, you're riding this massive high for some weeks, sometimes a month or so, but then the mundane of it starts to set in and the excitement wears off.
That pink cloud feeling you're talking about, it can last those months that you're getting the chips.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that because it happened to me. All 11 months, all the way up until a year, I was getting chips. I was celebrating, every month. Then all of a sudden, I wasn't getting the chips after that one year. And then it was just kind of like, here comes the work.
Yeah, because then now all I got is just that 1 year, every year to look forward to.
Every day you should be.
But it's hard, though.
It is.
And I think that's why, for those of us that are in faith-based recovery, we kind of got a leg up because our higher power is Jesus Christ.
Right.
And we can have that joy that is not circumstantial. Like Palmer was saying, that we can rely on the joy that comes from relying on Jesus Christ.
So I heard an acronym, a few years back about joy, and it's how you ultimately make the decision every day to have joy, and that's Jesus over yourself. J, Jesus. O, over yourself. Y, joy.
I like it. And we had the Celebrate Recovery background, so we're all about a good acronym.
Well, I think it's also, we need to remember that how we cultivate joy It's not just something that we get or something that we just automatically have. To cultivate joy, and I'm stealing this completely from a TikToker pastor named Kelly K. I've been doing his devotion. Think about that for a minute. It's a 40-day devotion. I would suggest going to check it out. But he says in there, to cultivate joy, you have to prioritize your relationship with God. And then another way to cultivate joy is to serve others. And I think it's really hard for most of us to be joyful in situations that maybe we're not really happy with. I know that I can say that today was a rough day at work. It was busy and I had to do a lot of thinking and moving and switching and stuff like that. And it's hard to find joy in those situations.
Yeah.
And so putting yourself last, putting people before yourself will help you cultivate that joy. Serving others will bring you a joy that you normally wouldn't have.
Yeah, and I think that's why step 12 is last. And, you've done all this step work and has led you up to step 12, where it tells you, all right, take what you have learned and then go give it to somebody else.
Right.
Give back. Give back to the program that gave so much to you. Go give to the newcomer. There's a saying that I say all the time. If you're a member of North Park Unashamed Recovery, you've heard this multiple times. I am not here today because I worked a step 1. I'm here today because somebody else was working a step 12. I'm here because somebody was giving back, and that's what that is the key to this whole thing. Is when I've learned and when I've gotten what I need from this program, then it's up to me to give back.
All right.
But moving on along, since you brought up this devotion with Kelly K, something that he also talks about is gratitude. We cultivate joy by choosing to be grateful for what God has done for us.
Dude, that one stepped on my toes really hard because...
How so?
Well, eventually I guess we'll do a episode where I talk about my story, but some of my story is based on the fact that I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted the fame. I wanted the fortune. I wanted the notoriety.
Yeah.
And because I don't have the fame and the fortune, because I don't have the big house and the flashy cars and stuff like that, it's very easy for me to get lost in not being grateful for what I do have. Yeah. My house might not be big, but it's big enough for me and my family. My cars might not be the best, but they're great for me and my family. God has blessed me in so many ways that I didn't even think about when I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted, like I said, I just wanted the fame and fortune and quote unquote no worries of being a rock star, of having lots of money. And it's hard to work okay, so when you have a dream, I don't know what y'all's dreams were. I just told you my dream was to be a rock
Mine's
star,
to win
right?
the lottery.
Yeah, exactly. Drew's dreams to have to stop messing with us. None of these dreams are coming true today. I'm just letting y'all know.
No.
But
Darn
when
it.
you have a dream and it doesn't come true and you have to move on to a plan B or a plan C, you still have to be grateful for the things that God has given you. You still have to understand that God has given you plenty.
Yeah.
And so finding that gratitude in your day-to-day life when you don't want to, when you've had a bad day at work, or you and your spouse are fighting, finding that gratitude in what you do have should change the way you look at things. You should be able to focus in on that joy that's deep inside because of the gratitude and the blessings that God has given you, especially from a recovery standpoint.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Especially for us in recovery, we have everything to be grateful for because we literally have second life. We've been given a second chance out of the pit. So many people don't make it,
right.
Especially with a chemical dependency. They're not guaranteed to make it, especially after a relapse. So,
but even sometimes, you have that second life. You got that second chance, but you still fighting some things, as far as life. But it's...
Yeah.
And that's why it's big on that accept life on life's terms. When people talk about that in recovery, that's a big thing. When you start accepting life for what it is, you start finding joy in the things that used to stress you all the way out. Because you can start to understand that, hey, maybe this is the way that life is supposed to be at this very moment, this very time, this very, particular instance. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think sometimes...
Purpose.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes back to the 3 P's of sobriety, passion, purpose, and power. I think we give in a lot of our power to sadness, to negativity, to the thing like Palmer was saying, being ungrateful. I think we find ourselves in these ruts. We get in these ruts and we sit in these ruts and we stay there because we get comfortable in something that we knew that was our old skin. Instead of taking on the new skin, the new change, and finding a new vision.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we rely on the old vision a lot of times. We rely on an addict mindset a lot of times instead of saying, hey, let me break the cycle of my thinking here and let me find gratitude. And that's why we talk about gratitude,
Or a really wise person I heard once say, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
I don't know who said that.
Man,
He definitely wasn't that wise.
I will be.
He was super wise. Thank you.
I will be completely honest. When I heard Drew say that a few episodes back when I was here with y'all, man, it really did hit hard. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Yeah. And you have to change. I'm using Drew's words again. You're stinking thinking. Yep. You have to change that. You have to focus on what you have to become grateful. You have to, first and foremost, you have to prioritize your relationship with God. That's got to be first. It needs to be the first thing you do when you step out of the bed or before you even get out of bed in the morning.
And there's a reason why so many conversations around recovery involve implementing a practice of gratitude.
Right.
I mean, you can go on any recovery social media page and you can find something about gratitude. I mean, it's the cornerstone building block of a healthy, thriving recovery.
It's also the cornerstone of joy.
I was just going to say it's the cornerstone of everything.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you can't have a productive relationship. You can't have a productive job. You can't have a productive anything unless you have that foundation of just being grateful and the fact that you're still alive and breathing and being able to do what you want to do. Last night we're at Celebrate Recovery in Byram at Trinity, and they have this wall says Lost Faces of Fentanyl. And our good buddy John G, his sister's face is on that wall, and he told me, he showed me that, and I said, man, John, that could have been you, and he said, you were exactly right, it could have been.
Wow.
And so being able to see that, and being able to understand that could have been me, gives him that waking up and just being grateful for whatever he has.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me a little bit of something that I went through early in recovery. I got to a place of stagnation in my recovery early in recovery. I just came off relapse. I went through the step study at North Park CR, going through the step study, and I got done with the step study. Now, take in mind, I've been a part of Celebrate Recovery at that point for 3 years, on and off. And I'd been involved in many, probably 3 or 4 different step studies before that. But I'd never completed the step studies. I'd always gotten hung up at the inventory. So 2017, I just came out of my relapse, got into a step study, and I completed step study. Now, my entire career at Celebrate Recovery, they had told me, go to step study will change your life. So it's been built up in my head this whole time. All right, step study changed my life. I go through step study, and we finished in December of 2018, I think. And I remember walking out of the church. We had just finished steps. I walked out of the church, and I was filled with so much bitterness because I was like, I don't feel no different. I'm not different. I'm the same sorry SOB that I was.
Well, how the tides have changed there.
Yeah. So, but I remember being so bitter about it. I could feel my recovery just take a halt. And I wasn't making any progress moving forward, very stagnant. And I remember going a couple months later and being in prayer about it. I remember just God laying it on thick on my heart about, it's because you ain't been grateful. Here you are, you just came out of relapse from your porn addiction that led to adultery. Your wife should have left you. She stayed. And now, not only did she stay, but now you have a second daughter who is on the way. My middle daughter we were pregnant with her at that time. And you're sitting here being bitter about how you don't feel different. And that changed things. I was like, I started to rework that thinking process. And I started, okay, I do have something to be grateful for. And I started changing that in my mindset. And then I started seeing progress in my recovery. And it took just that switch going off in my head of getting out of bitterness and adopting a posture of gratitude. And I ain't gonna say it was that simple, but you know, it was that simple.
You know what gratitude does? I mean, it entices joy, right? But it also helps you find joy by living in the moment. I think a lot of times that's why we stay in such a rut, or that's what I'm going with the rut thing a lot today, mainly because that's where my life has been a lot, is in a rut, and you're a bit stuck, can't get out of it. That's because I don't live in the moment a lot. I'm always trying to stay 10 steps ahead of the next person or the next situation, next circumstance. But, I find myself, if I actually take a step back and pause for a minute and kind of look around and actually enjoy where I'm at. Like the other day I was bush hogging. It's hard work. But I took I stopped for a second, stood in the shade, and just kind of looked around and was overjoyed just by being outside, by looking up and just saying, man, years ago, I'd be trying to hide back here. And I wouldn't be bush hogging this. This would be like a place to lay down and go to sleep. You know what I mean? But it changed. But I was living in the moment at that point, and I just noticed I wasn't worried about the bills. I wasn't worried about anything to do with the kids. I mean, I worry about the kids constantly, but I was just kind of in that moment, and I think we take that away from ourselves a lot, with the world being so busy, phones the way they are. I mean, what was it? We pick up our phones. What did Pastor Jim say? 2,000 times a day or greater, and I mean, we're living in social media at that point. We're not even living in the world.
Well, and also a lot of us are living in destination addiction.
Yeah.
We're in this idea of happiness is in the next place to come. It's in the next job, in the next relationship, in the next car, in our next purchase. We're never, like you just said, we're never in the moment.
Yeah.
And so
we're either living in our past, staying in fear, or living in our future, worrying about everything.
Well, I think right there is a good time to stop. Let's do a little spot ad. Let's pay the bills, as they say in the radio industry, and we'll be right back
with Count It All Joy.
Unashamed Recovery Podcast is heard around the world in over 42 countries, including over 780 cities in the United States. People around the world are hearing the message of hope, of recovery from addiction, and that's because of listeners like you who donate, but also because of our sponsors. Local sponsors like D's Automotive in Meridian, Mississippi, serving the East Central Mississippi and West Alabama areas for over 42 years. D's is a name you can trust when it comes to your vehicle. For all your complete car needs and service and towing and car locks, that's D's Automotive. Go by and see Miss Jeannie, Mike, and the boys at 5024 Poplar Springs Drive. That's 5024 Poplar Springs Drive in Meridian, Mississippi. Or give them a call at 601-482-1800. That's 601-482-1800. And tell them that Josh and Drew sent ya. Unashamed Recovery is also sponsored internationally by Sober Life Love, a sober dating site made for the sober community. Are you tired of the dating scene revolving around alcohol and drugs? Do you want to find someone who shares your commitment to a sober lifestyle? Look no further than SoberLife.love. The Sober Life Love platform is specifically designed for individuals who are sober and seeking a partner who shares in their same values. Whether you're in recovery, prefer not to drink, or simply choose to live a sober lifestyle, we provide a safe and supportive community for you to connect with like-minded individuals. With our advanced matching algorithms, you can find compatible partners who understand your journey and respect your choices. From sober activities to meaningful conversations, our dating service offers a variety of ways to connect and build relations. SoberLife.love is the new way to connect with people who understand and support your journey. Join today for free at www.soberlife.love. That's www.soberlife.love. Now back to your normally scheduled program right here on Unashamed Recovery Podcast. And welcome back to Unashamed Recovery Podcast. I'm your new host, Palmer. I'm actually the third wheel on this train that's running off the rails because I've been thrown on here.
Well, it's running off the rails because there's no conductor.
I know.
We lost the conductor way back.
Way back. So, right before we went to break, you were talking about living in
Destination addiction.
destination addiction.
Dun, dun,
I've
dun.
never heard that. So, just in case there's anybody out there that's dumb like I am, can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on destination addiction?
It's whenever we are putting our faith or our happiness in something else. Like, it's always the next thing. Like, I'm never happy nor content in the moment. It's always this next thing. I'm living for the weekend. I'm living for the next vacation. My happiness is going to come from buying the next vehicle. Like, that next vehicle is going to solve my problems.
Man, I think a lot of us do that a lot. Even
Yeah.
if you're not in recovery, I think you're
Yeah.
always living for.
Yeah, it's
you
always
know,
what's next.
I still want a bigger house. You know what I mean? Like,
And I'm trying to downsize to a smaller house.
I know. And if we lived in the same area, we could just trade.
But
So let me just say, because we're talking about that, and we're talking about how joy is different than happiness. In this devotion, think about that for a minute, by Kelly Kay. He says, "What is joy of the Lord? The joy of the Lord is not merely happiness or pleasure, but a deep-seated sense of well-being that comes from knowing and trusting in God. It is a joy that transcends our circumstances and is rooted in the character of God." We don't find joy on our own. We can't find joy on our own. We have to be doing something else. We have to, because we're believers, our joy comes from God and what Jesus has done for us and what God has done for us. It can't be something. Happiness is like we already said. Happiness is completely different. It's just happiness is a feeling, and really, I just want to drive home the thought process of joy is a choice. Yeah. It's going to work, knowing that might not be your dream job, or knowing that you're going to have a really bad day. You just know it for whatever reason, and it's still finding joy in those moments.
If we are finding ourselves in that destination addiction, it's the same with the addict that's hooked on heroin. You're looking for something to replace that hole in your life that will give you ultimate joy. And so whether you're addicted to heroin, or whether you're addicted to the destination, or whether you're addicted to food, or whatever it may be, until you give up the idea that happiness is somewhere else, it will never be where you are at. Let that set in for a moment. Until you give up the idea that happiness is somewhere else, it will never be where you are.
That hits hard because, I've lived in that a long time. It's just like you said. It's kind of like an addict, man. You're always looking for your next hit. You're always looking for your next bump. You know what I mean? You're looking for that next fix to make you happy.
Yeah.
It's being able to find joy without that bump, without that vacation, without that new car, without that new house.
I think it's more than that. Drew, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's about finding joy in Christ.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's not just so much of I got to find joy outside, and I think that's the problem. I think we try to find joy outside of God when He should be our ultimate fulfillment. If Christ is our higher power, if He's our Savior, then that is it. That is where our contentment and our joy, the source of our joy, is at.
And knowing that there's more than just this life. Does that make sense? Like there's more than just this life. This life is just a season, and it's like, when you're living for that weekend, or you're living for that day off, or that vacation, or whatever, you might not get there. That is the absolute truth. It's just like we were talking about the lost faces of fentanyl. Those people thought they had plans. They thought they were going on that next vacation. They thought they were going to get that next car.
That's why you have to live in the moment.
Yep. We have to live for today.
24 hours. Yeah. One day at a time.
But Paul said it as well, count it all joy. He said it in James. We was talking about, when we fall into trials, various trials. Basically, I'll read the scripture.
Where does that come from, James? What?
It comes from James, first chapter, 2nd verse through the 6th.
We'll put that in the show notes for everybody if you want to read along.
It says, count it all joy when you fall into trials. Count it all joy, knowing the testing of your faith produces patience, which when perfect and complete produces lack of nothing. Ask in faith for wisdom, and it will be given. But count it all joy, because basically it's everything. I mean, God's producing something in you that you don't see yet. In the midst of chaos, it's like the pogo balls when you drop them all at one time. You know what I mean? Yeah. They all seem like they're going to go all over the place, but for some odd reason, they find exactly where they need to be at the end. They find a slot at the end where they fit. And that's the ultimate goal. At the end of it all, we want to find a spot where we fit.
And he's definitely the one to be listening to, Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, almost every time I've actually spoke on stage, I speak about Paul a lot. And Paul's definitely the example. Other than obviously Jesus is our example, but as a just straight up human that walked the earth, Paul is the example. Why? Because Paul wrote most of his writings from prison. And we're not talking about prison like today. We're not talking about how, Rankin County has a trustee trustee system where you can move up the stages, and eventually, basically you're in prison, you're in jail, but you're not in jail. You know what I mean? Like,
is it Colossians where he talks about how many times he's been locked up, beaten, robbed, stabbed?
I don't think it's Colossians. I think it's Corinthians. We actually talked about that.
Somebody fact check us out there.
And on Stay the Course.
Right.
We talked about it. I want to say it's Corinthians.
But some of them prisons that he was in, he was the bottom of the bottom, like with the waist.
Yep. Well, and he not only
still
that,
talking about joy.
Not only that, he was, and there was one where he was in the inner prison of the prison. Like, imagine not only being in prison, but you are in the inner prison. And
you're
that
not just in prison, you're in prison.
That would be the equivalent of today's
like lockdown,
the lockdown, the isolation, solitary,
solitary confinement.
And imagine being in that place and still having joy. I read where Galatians is considered to be the happiest book in the Bible, and it was written while he was in prison. So it's not circumstances.
No,
it can't be circumstances.
It's mindsets.
I can be going through the darkest
of temptations,
of trials while in my recovery, and I can still face my day with joy because it's not circumstantial.
It's not just your stuff. You don't have to look good. You don't have to, have all that great stuff that, some of us dreamed of when we were teenagers. It's knowing that your joy comes from what Christ did for us. That he literally paid the price to wash us clean. Now, we're gonna fall every day. We're gonna have temptations. We're gonna have trials, and we're gonna have bad days, and we're not gonna be showing that joy like we should be. But our strive should be to focus on our gratitude for what we have, prioritize our relationship with God, and go out and serve other people. Find a way to serve. If you want to truly find that joy and truly experience the euphoric feeling of joy, go out and serve somebody. Tim, the pastor over there at Trinity, he was talking about how he goes out to Shower Power every Friday, and he plays like dominoes with people. Yeah. And man, these homeless guys, you can tell how much it means to them. But he's like, I get such a joyful feeling, an overwhelming joyful feeling after being able to just serve people that usually get shunned away.
Well, see, and I think that us as a society have really put serving up on this pedestal. Like, when you got to go and you got to do this exuberant thing to serve. And it doesn't have to be that. It can be something as simple as going down to where the homeless people are able to get a shower and play dominoes with somebody.
Or talk to people. Text them. Pray for somebody. Yeah. If you know somebody going through something, reach out and say, hey, you okay? Look, John had a bad tire on the truck last night. we had to make sure he got home safely. You know what I mean? Like, you know, he texted me when he got home, and I was like, I was just about to text you. That's as simple as it can get. Yep. To bring somebody else joy and to serve other people can be as simple as texting somebody and saying, hey, you were on my mind. How are you doing?
Or it could also be as simple as, if you're a part of a Celebrate Recovery group, it could be as simple as you being at the front door, writing names on name tags as people come in through the door and greeting them with a smile and writing their name on a name tag and handing it to them. That can make their day. That literally has the power to change somebody's day right there. I've seen it time and time again. I've seen it with my own self. I'll have just a crap day, not wanting to go to Celebrate Recovery, wanting to go home, get a shower, pull the covers over my head. But instead, I drag my butt to CR, walk through the door. I met with somebody with a smile on the face. They give me my name tag, and all of a sudden, I'm just in a completely different mood because, all right, there's a friendly, smiling face that's greeting me, asking how I am, and they're actually literally concerned with how I am today. It makes a difference. So,
somebody like Drew. Drew's always got a great smile. It really is truthful, though. I mean, somebody like Drew that's got a big, big smile, being able to greet you somewhere. Like, Drew, when you decide to retire, you should be a greeter at Walmart. Welcome to Walmart.
You know, we did lay a lot on a lot of people. I mean, but in the beginning of you trying to find joy, the idea is first pray, second turn it over to God. Number 3 is you got to start letting go of some of these old ideas, some of the habits. I mean, that's where you're going to start finding some of your healing. When you start letting go of the old ideas, old habits. You know, it's going to be challenging at first. You know, it's just those little subtle changes.
Well, it's going to suck at first because you're peeling that scab off.
Yeah, I mean, and you're having to really investigate the wounds. You know, you're having to really do some inventory work there. But, I mean, it starts to bring more fulfillment when you start to hang around people who have joy, who are content with, we're not content to say, but you know, that are happy with where they are, joyful with where they are in life,
well, and I'm
joyful with their recovery.
I'm glad you brought that up because you said when you start hanging around people, if I'm hanging around the people who are nothing but doom and gloom all the time, that's going to affect me.
That's my
Then
bad.
I'm going to feel like that.
Yeah, I know.
What is it? You hang around 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6th.
Yeah.
You are
Can
the
you
average.
find me those 5?
I'm looking. I'm
Okay.
still looking.
You are the average of the 5 people you hang around.
Right. But
That,
you know,
that came from Amy Brogan. Shout out.
and then
Mississippi royalty.
the Recovery Princess.
Yeah.
Recovery Princess.
Shout out.
It's the name of my next album.
But another way is start finding new hobbies. You know, start finding new ways to live in the moment. You know, for a minute, mine was photography. As crazy as that sounds, dude, you're laughing, but I mean, like,
I think that's awesome.
No,
There's a
to
lot of
sit
great things
outside
to
and like, and
take
it's
pictures.
crazy. I took pictures like wildlife when I came across it.
I'm laughing 'cause-
creeks and bugs. Like,
Well,
but
I'm
I mean,
laughing because I can see you. I can see you
Don't be
positioned
mean.
out in a field.
don't
with
be
one of
mean
these-
right now.
with
We're
one of
talking
these-
about joy, Josh.
with one of these big long camera the lenses.
It wasn't.
and
It wasn't a long lens camera
that's what I was like. 'Cause like I had a visual of you
with
out
like
in
the
this
stick,
field.
the stick that holds
Yes.
it up.
Well, I mean, we weren't going to tell you about the photo shoot we did where I was like, you know, he was laying on the ground pointing up and I was had my cute little overalls on and stuff like that. But, you know.
This is why I wanted to get away from YouTube.
Well, you're stuck with us. But
So going back to the prioritizing too, you know, Drew brought up praying, but also understand that to prioritize your relationship with God, you need to not only be praying, you need to talk to him and be listening. You've got to read his word. You've got to. I don't care if it's one verse in a devotion like we were talking about today. You know, Kelly Kay takes one verse and he kind of breaks it down. So I don't care if you read one verse or 5 or 500. Read his word every day. Talk to him every day. And worship. And I'm not just talking about at church where you're raising your hands up and you're in the moment there. Man, blare that worship music in your car.
well, also though, worship ain't just music in a car.
Right.
Worship is our prayer time. Worship is things that we do to honor God.
Right.
I mean, worship goes way beyond just the music that we hear, and that could be a whole nother episode of.
Yeah, I was just trying to break it down for us simple-minded people like
Yes.
me.
Yeah, like me. But anyway,
So if we're going to focus on joy, this is my last little tidbit, and I'm done after this.
recap.
So if we're going to focus on joy, just start thinking about, what brought you joy as a child, and like I said, don't live in the past, but start thinking of those things because, as addicts, we allowed everything to be taken away from us. Yep. Everything. Like Palmer was talking about earlier, dreams, hopes, decisions that we wanted to make, when we were adults or, however long somebody's been using, that first initial use, that was it. You've already robbed yourself at that point. So start thinking back to what brought you joy as a child. Embrace new activities and pastimes, to find fulfillment. Don't look back and regret at things that you can't change anymore.
That's right.
That's a good one.
Yep.
See them as learning experiences and move on. I'm bad about grasping on to something and holding on to it. I keep a spirit of unforgiveness, and it sucks. I have to really be mindful of that thing, man.
Don't worry, y'all. He signed up for abiding free, so we're going to take it.
And when I say unforgiveness, I'm not a grudge holder. I just hold people. The accountability level that I hold people to is outrageous because I hold myself to the same one, but it is completely outrageous and it is really unconventional sometimes. But
that's easy for all of us though, because we can easily, I say easily, we should be able to as Christians easily forgive. But I don't remember any part of the Bible saying we should forget.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if somebody's continuously doing you wrong or is toxic, maybe that's a relationship you need to get out of. You can forgive them all you want to, but
Now, I heard this last year at the Celebrate Recovery Summit in Dallas. Forgive and forget are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Think about when Christ died on the cross. He'd been whipped, he'd been beat by the Roman soldiers. And then he was crucified, and he died. After he was resurrected, no doubt that Christ forgave his enemies.
Right.
But think about when he came back, who did he go reveal himself to? It wasn't the Roman soldiers. He went to his people.
Right.
He went to the disciples. So forgive, but also remember your friends and your enemies.
yeah, you want to.
Even in the Bible it says forgive but forget not.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't remember any verse that says you have to forget. We can remember what people have done for us so that we can have just enough guard up to keep us okay and joyful, right?
Right.
But, we forgive them. And then look, if it's, like I said, if it's a toxic relationship or a toxic friendship or a toxic anything, Jesus doesn't want that. Doesn't want that in your life. You can, look, he hung out with the sinners, but he didn't sin with the sinners.
He didn't partake in it.
Right.
Yep. Good point.
So accept the new reality, and that it's going to be uncomfortable at first, guys. It's going to be uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the more comfortable it starts to become.
Yeah.
And finding joy. So count it all joy.
Or like Josh said, counting it all joy.
Either way works.
Either
way works. Sometimes if we can't count, we got to be counting. Hey.
Well, I don't have my boots on today, so I can get to at least 20.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps up another episode of Unashamed Recovery podcast. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to listen to these old three guys talk for 40 minutes about joy. It means a lot to us that you tune in each and every episode. For some reason,
grateful.
y'all like us. I'm not sure why, but
it's Palmer's Silver Fox voice now.
Yeah.
He's
The Unashamed Recovery podcast is brought to you by Palmer.
I can't speak for the other guys, but I personally hope that you have found this episode helpful and encouraging. And if you are wanting more recovery content, go visit our brand new website, unashamedrecovery.com. One word, unashamedrecovery.com. And there you can find more recovery content as well as new sobriety and recovery themed blogs to take you deeper into your sobriety and recovery journey. And that's where you'll also be able to find recovery events, You'll be able to find our Bible reading plans. You'll be able to find us on all of our social media links, listen to episodes, and a whole lot more. There you can also donate to the show to help us reach more people still lost in the darkness of addiction. And I also want to encourage y'all to go check out more amazing recovery podcasts over at Take 12 Recovery Radio, Recovery Podcast Network. That link is in the show notes. It's also on our website under our partners page. So, with that being said, remember to stay sober, and above all else, keep on 12-stepping as you stay
Unashamed.
Love y'all.
Love you.